Some of the best water rides out there. Between SeaWorld Orlando and Islands of Adventure, both those parks contain 5 of the best water rides ever made. So if you disagree with me, stay tuned so you can hear about why I believe Orlando is the water ride capital of the world. But Journey to Atlantis at SeaWorld Orlando. Now, the first main pro of Journey to Atlantis is that it's a very well themed water ride, as the first river section that's indoors is just very well themed and transports you to what Atlantis would have looked like if it was a real city. Now, I will admit, Journey to Atlantis has had its theming nerfed over the years, as back, I believe, I can't remember if it was 2016 or 17, but there used to be this sea monster that looks very similar to Medusa, but it's not Medusa. Taunt you as you climb up the lift hill. And that used to be one of my favorite parts of the ride, personally. But then, as it was removed in either 2016 or 2017, that definitely brought the theming down a couple notches, but the ride is still very well themed. Another main benefit of Journey to Atlantis is it also is a roller coaster, as when you enter the second lift hill back into the building, you have a small coaster section inside, and it's nothing crazy or anything. This is a family coaster after all, but it just adds a bunch of variety, and it could be much longer and a bit more thrilling, but it doesn't have to be. So I'm just glad that it adds much more variety to this ride. Also, another main pro with Journey to Atlantis is you won't come off the ride super wet. As for example, that first big drop on the ride, you don't get that wet from it because most of the water is released away from the boat. So you really don't get that wet. Like your upper body just gets a sprinkling from that main drop, and your lower body will get a bit wet. But one thing that's interesting with Journey to Atlantis is the 2 much smaller drops on the ride. The drop after the turn after that big drop, and then the drop after the coaster section get you much more wet, surprisingly. And then another main benefit of Journey to Atlantis that makes it a great water ride is that big drop. It doesn't provide any airtime or much in terms of forces, but it does provide a good sense of speed and zip. So because of that, I think Journey to Atlantis is one of the best water rides out there, and is definitely a reason why SeaWorld Orlando has some amazing water rides. So let's move on to SeaWorld Orlando's other water ride, that being Infinity Falls, their River Rapids ride. Now this ride is a true soaker. This thing will get you crazy wet due to all the rapids. And it's actually crazy because me being stupid during the COVID days, I rode this thing with a mask on. Because of how wet this ride will get you, I freaking came off the Infinity Falls thinking I was about to suffocate because my mask was so damp. It was probably a pretty stupid decision. Just will show you how wet you get on this ride. And despite how wet you get, the final drop on the ride that once was the tallest drop on a River Rapids ride in the Western Hemisphere, it just builds up some speed and really is only good if you're going backwards down it, which is just the luck of a draw. And if you're going backwards down that drop is very refreshing as you get a bunch of water just thrown up your back. But as I mentioned earlier, the main way this ride will soak you is through rapids, waterfalls, and a few sprayers here and there. Now the one pro of the drop is it does add a nice amount of variety to this ride, as there's not too many river rapids rides out there that I'm aware of that have drops. A good amount of them just focus on rapids, which is why Infinity Falls is such a great ride and is just a great addition to SeaWorld Orlando. Another thing that makes Infinity Falls so great is it doesn't have a crazy ton of theming, though it's themed to a river expedition. It just is very well landscaped throughout the course with a bunch of rocks, beautiful landscaping. I mean, what do you expect? It's a SeaWorld park. They're known for great landscaping. But all those reasons just make Infinity Falls one of the best water rides out there, and definitely one of the best in Orlando. Now let's move on to Universal's Islands of Adventures water rides. First up, we had their log flume, Doodly Doo Rights Ripsaw Falls. Now I know nothing about the comic that this ride is based off of, but even despite that, this ride has some hilarious and great theming. Another thing with this ride, like all of Islands of Adventure's water rides, this thing will get you soaked. Now, I can't remember correctly, but with both Dudley Rights, Ripsaw Falls, and Popeyes and Bluto's Bilge at Barges, but one of them will definitely get your upper body soaked, while the other one gets your lower body soaked. Just one thing to note if you're planning on going to Islands of Adventure soon. But this ride is just amazing because the drop is fantastic at I believe it's 75 feet, which is pretty big for a water ride. And that drop and the preceding airtime hill does give some surprising floater airtime for a water ride. And that makes sense because this ride does sadly have some fairly restricting restraints for a log flume. And also, one thing to note with Dudley Rights Ripsaw Falls is like the front row has less leg room than the other rows. So if you're shorter, you'll probably be sitting up front. So just be aware of that. If you're shorter, you will definitely get more wet on this ride. So because of all those reasons, Dudley Rights Ripsaw Falls is seriously one of the best log flumes out there and is easily one of the best water rides in Orlando and all of Florida. Now moving on to Islands of Adventure's River Rapids ride, we have Popeyes and Bluto's Bilge at Barges. And like with Dudley Rights Ripsaw Falls, this thing will get you absolutely soaked and has some amazing theming. Now, I don't know the context of any of the theming, as like with Dudley Rights Ripsaw Falls, I don't know anything about the Popeyes comics, but besides the point, this thing has amazing theming. The rapids are very strong, like you are guaranteed to get soaked head to toe on this thing. Because of those reasons, this thing is just amazing. Even despite this ride not having any drops, though I feel like if this ride did have a good drop, it would make it easily the best river rapids ride out there. But personally, I think I slightly prefer Infinity Falls just because I feel like they're slightly better rapids and that drop just adds a bit more variety. But one thing that Popeyes has going for it is it's super long, and you also have a bunch of other waterfalls and geysers along with the rapids, which give you even more ways to get soaked. So that's one thing to note with all these rides. You will not come off dry. If you want to come off dry, just forget about these rides. But other than that, Popeyes and Bluto's Bilge at Barges is definitely a must-do ride at Islands of Adventure and is one of the best water rides in Orlando and the world. Moving on to Islands of Adventure's final water ride, you have Jurassic Park River Adventure. Now this is a shoot the chutes ride and actually opened as the tallest shoot the chutes ride, as it has a massive 85-foot drop, and that drop is just amazing, combined with all the great Jurassic Park animatronics. And one thing that makes that drop even more special is that before you drop, a giant T-Rex comes down and acts like he's about to eat the boat, which is a very cool feature that just adds to this ride's theming. And you also have a bunch of audio effects in that building and just a bunch of amazing theming overall. And another thing to note with this ride is you will get soaked. Now, if you don't want to get soaked, obviously sit further back and sit towards the middle, as much of the water is reflected outside. Same with Journey to Atlantis at SeaWorld Orlando. Just note, this thing is freaking amazing and is definitely a must-do attraction when you go visit Islands of Adventure. Especially if you're a big water ride fan, Jurassic Park / World fan, and just want to get soaked in this Florida heat. So if you made it this far in the video, I just want to thank you for watching this video. And if you enjoyed it, remember to give this video a like and share this video with anybody you know who's visiting Orlando soon. And also remember to subscribe to Southeastern Thrills and check out my videos on how to have the best day at both SeaWorld Orlando and Islands of Adventure. Peace.